was just at home the other day, 2 days ago, and my mother apologized about the meat being overcooked. She apologized for not having milk on the table. And I don't know. I feel bad about that she would apologize. My brother does that in a lot of ways, and I try to stop him. I don't know. I feel bad that he would do things like that. I don't know. Maybe it's inferiority kind of like make definitive statements. And I think it's bad in terms of business. I don't want to interrupt you. I went to school in Athens, Ohio, in film, and it was kind of popular there for a couple of years. It seemed a bunch of friends of his, they were called the Bums on Tour, and these Bums on Tour, I saw them once. They came into the Crystal Casino. It was raining outside. They're obviously loaded out of their mind. One guy, he pulled his jacket up like this, and he setting himself on fire. He's sitting there going, whoa, 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 the fire. And I had seen at least one or two other people do that. He put the idea in my mind of, setting someone else on fire, of course. Liked, and he was kind of a jerky kind of one. And a friend of mine, Fritz Schwab, and we went into this one bar, and it was like the last bar that would serve us at the time. And this guy happened to be sitting there, and he was blowing him off. So then he's talking, and we came up with the idea, well, why don't we set this guy on fire? He turned to us, and we both had lighters. And we set the back of his sweatshirt on fire. Well, Fritz, I had to go to the John, goodbye. So I don't know why, anyway, what I didn't know was that Fritz didn't tell him that he was still on fire, and Fritz didn't tell him that he was on fire. Of course, the woman wouldn't go home with him. It's one of the cruddiest bars in town. He was rolling on the floor. And so one of the things that happened later was, I guess I felt pretty bad about it, was the guy ended up being a student of mine about 2 months later. He took me down to a Woolworths thing. He took me down to this Woolworths and showed me all these sweatshirts. I believe it, but I didn't buy him another one. But here he was, a student of mine. And, at this point, he held the power of the grade over him. And despite all this, a couple of years later, he recommended me for a job at this TV station. I worked with him a couple of years. I really felt all that bad about it until I was talking with a friend of mine here in Cincinnati, and she mentioned, well, that isn't funny at all. What is this stuff? Setting a guy on fire, this and that. And I don't know. I think it was anti-Semitism and things like that. And I felt pretty bad at the time. Once we started talking about this at the time, because part of it, I mentioned that this guy was from Long Island, and he was pretty pushy Jewish, and he was pretty pushy. And that's this story. I feel I really didn't make any sort of connection there at the time, but I suppose if someone looked at it, and I honestly, it was, we are friends. But I felt pretty bad about that later on, and yet here I am. Maybe there isn't a connection there. I know the bar burned down later anyway. Maybe that's a third of the block next to it. So the other down to it, I feel pretty bad about just about everything. I guess it has a lot to do with. I think a lot of self-consciousness in some ways, and I think to be guilty, you have to be self-conscious. But to be guilty is to be self-conscious. But if you're really self-conscious, then that's a real form of vanity. And consciousness of the act is one of the main ingredients of sin, and I think that's how, that's what guilt is all about, and yet you can't escape it in a lot of ways. I don't see how, I don't know, I don't see how some people, I guess I have anyway, my girlfriend now, anyway, my girlfriend now is a woman in general, and I think it's impossible. If it is, you must be a mass murderer. But it's possible. People, I think there's many people that could do that in general. Many people.